Okay, guys, today we're going to go ahead and replace the head cover for a 2013 through 2017 Honda Accord and check some valves. Now, my car is up to 170,000 miles, so it's about time to take a look. I had a little bit of sweating on the seal, so decided it was time to do it. As you can see, I have photos of the instructions as we go. You can stop at any time to go ahead and review those photos, and it'll give you some pointers on what to do. First pointer I'm going to give you is keep it clean. I blew it off. Don't wash it off. That's probably a bad idea. Just dust it off really good because water is going to get stuck places. So as you can see, we're going to go ahead and take the cover off here first. And as I'm working, you'll notice that I keep wiping, and it's mostly to just get all the dust down, because once you take the cover off, you don't want any dirt getting in there. I used a blower, obviously, to do it. Use a microfiber cloth. It's best as far as taking the dirt off the engine itself. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the wire harnesses here. This is the harness attaching the coils to the spark plugs. So to start by doing that, you just squeeze the end and pull them out. They do it pretty easy. If they don't come out easy, squeeze, push in, and then pull out, and it usually comes out pretty easy. You'll hear it as soon as it clears. When you take your coils out, make sure to keep them in the order that they came out. Make sure they go back in the same way. So now we're going to go ahead and remove the wire harness from the alternator and also the air conditioning compressor. It's pretty easy. I'm using needle nose pliers here to release the tabs so I don't have to cut them. You can cut them and replace them if you want to, but it's pretty easy to do this. You can use a smaller pair. You just have to squeeze it and make sure it gets off the metal mount. Over here, that's a 12mm nut there I'm taking off. I'll put the nut always back on there, and also I'll put the put the socket back on top of there so I don't forget to where I put it. So you can see that as I work my way down, I'm removing all the wire harness. And once it's done, I can peel it back and get it out of the way. There it goes. Now I'm just checking some other things. I unhooked that harness on the right side, but you don't have to. I just did it because it felt like I didn't want to stretch it. Using some zip ties to tie it to the upper strut brace, and that keeps the wiring out of the way. The more you can do to keep things out of your way, the better off you'll be here. The O2 sensor mounting bracket, it's just a little tab. Pull the tab, slide it forward, and it's off. And just make sure to pull it out of the way. Like I said, I just keep going in, dabbing it, making sure any loose dirt's taken off. Now we're going to go ahead and take off the PCV hose on the back. It's pretty easy. That one's not too bad. I had to use a pair of pliers there to kind of pry it loose. It does have 170,000 miles, so stuff is pretty well stuck on there now. So you just got to be careful because you can chew up the line. Okay, on the back side, there's some harnesses that are attached to the valve cover as well. I'm going to go back there and pry that off so we can pull the wires away. I didn't have to unplug any wires there. I just had to take that harness, detach the harness from the cover, and then just kind of slip it out of the way. This one's not that easy to get to, but the harnesses themselves, the way they attach, is pretty easy to disconnect. You just kind of have to work at it a little bit, and once it's out of the way, you just kind of push it. You're done. Then you get to see the back of my head as I take the other side of the PCV hose off. That one was much more difficult. I did have to use a pair of pliers. It did chew it up a little bit, but it seemed like it was okay. There's me putting the socket on there. Okay, so now I have everything cleared away. We can go ahead and take off the nuts. The bolts off the head cover. I like to just work my way around. Don't take them all the way out. Just loosen them all first and then take them out. It's much better to do it this way. You're less likely to drop a bolt when you already have them loosened. So just collect all your bolts. Make sure to keep them together. They're all the same length with the exception of the one on the right side in the middle. It's a different type of bolt because it has a retainer on the top that holds the cover on the high pressure fuel module. So other than that, they're all the same. So you're not going to. There's that last one. You can see it has a little tab on top. Okay, just kind of rock it loose. Don't hit it with anything. You just kind of can work it off there. So we're going to go here slow motion finally. And you can see what synthetic oil does to your engine. It keeps it nice and clean. That is 170,000 miles, and you can see the engine's pretty well spotless. So now I'll go ahead and take the old one off. This is when you take your time, because if there's any dust or anything, you don't want it to fall into the engine. So take your time with this part. Then I usually go through and start dabbing off all the oil, off the seals, anywhere where there was gasket maker, you want to peel that away. You don't have to do an awesome job at it. Just get enough of it out of the way. Okay, to rotate the crank, there's an opening 19 millimeter bolt socket can go in there, and it hooks to the crank, and then you can rotate the engine. So as you can see right now, I'm going to go ahead and start rotating it to hit top dead center. Go clockwise. Do not back the engine up. So you can see every time it hits a compression stroke, the whole thing kind of shifts. Okay, so what I'm doing is checking the rockers and making sure they're loose. And then here's some information as far as finding top dead center, and also a photo showing top dead center. As you can see, the marks are where they're supposed to be. If you can't shake the rocker arms, then you are not top dead center. This is telling you what the specs are as far as using your feeler gauge, how to use your feeler gauge. I always just pull the feeler gauge out and bend it so I can get it in there. And we're just going to do one cylinder here. We're going to show you how to get in there. So as you can see, I bent my feeler gauge so I can get it in there. I slide it in. What you want to do is just feel for a little bit of drag, and that's all you should feel. And I was quite shocked to find out that my valves are perfect and there's no adjustment needed. Usually Hondas on the exhaust side have a problem, but wasn't no issue. It was actually perfect. I was actually quite surprised. I even checked with a couple other feeler gauges, go up one, go down one, and check them, and there was no issue. So now I'm going to check the intake side, same thing, but I'm going to use the 0.09 this time. And same thing, it's perfect. I was quite shocked. I have another video, and I'll probably attach it here, showing you how to actually adjust them, since I didn't have to adjust them. Mainly what I'm showing you here is how to check them, but I did not have to adjust them. This is if you have Honda's fancy tool that they use. And here's additional notes on going forward, finding each of the cylinders top dead center. Remember, always rock the rocker arm and look at the position of the phase of the cam to make sure that you're in top dead center in any of the cylinders. So I had to go ahead and rotate this, and I feel like I missed one, so I just kept going until I had all the rocker arms loose and I could check each of the cylinders. The cylinders are pretty normally numbered, left to right, 1 through 4. And then you just pretty much rotate it and find out when your rocker arms are loose, and then check the valves, get in between there. And they're basically rocker followers. So that's pretty much all the notes I can give you on this part of it. It's pretty straightforward. You just have to have a good feel for what it feels like to slide that in and out and know what the tightness should be on the feeler gauge. The trick that I tell people is if you have a micrometer, set the micrometer to the thickness that you need, and then use your feeler gauge and slide it in and out, and that'll tell you what it should feel like when you put it on a valve, between the valve and the follower. So that's the best way to find out what the actual, if it's too tight or too loose. You can also, like I said, go up one size, down one size. That'll also give you a feel of if it's too big or too small. If it's slightly out, usually I just leave it as long as it's not getting tighter. You don't want the gap to get too tight or too loose. If you can't get your feeler gauge in there, then obviously you have a problem. So as I'm going, you're obviously giving thumbs up as I determine each of them that are good. Go back and do some more cleaning. You can't do enough cleaning here. I don't use solvent. You can use solvent if you want, but I try not to, because the seals are usually, rubber or whatever, and you can actually, if you don't get all that off, it can cause problems. So I'm turning my attention to the head cover here. Now I'm going to clean this up. Did not have to replace the oil plug holes in the middle. There are spark plug holes. Those actually, I like that they upgraded them. Now they're bolted in. Anyone who's worked on an older Honda knows that the older ones you had to pry out, but these actually have 2 screws that hold them in, which is really nice. But they were actually in really good condition. I felt around them and they didn't feel hard or anything. Maybe next time I'll go ahead and replace them, but this time it felt like they were okay. So I'm going to go ahead and install the new seal. You just want to keep working it back and forth and just make sure that you got it all right. And then you want to let it sit for a little bit. Okay, these are some notes that they like you to know. You want to make sure to let it sit after you're done. Make sure to put a gasket maker where it tells you to. It'll be on the left side, timing cover, and then on the right side where you'll see where the other gasket maker was. You don't need a lot, just a dab basically. But once you do this, you want to hurry up and get the cover back on the engine, because once it sets up, you kind of lose its oil stopping ability. So do this slowly. Don't get any wires trapped in there. It's very easy to do. So you just want to take your time, and then just start cleaning up again. And now we're going to go ahead and tighten things up. On the lower right hand side of that picture, you saw the torque specs. So what it wants you to do is put the screws in and then tighten them by hand first, starting from the center out, and then you go through with your torque wrench and tighten them down. I think it was 5 or 7 foot-pounds of torque, and you just once again start from the middle and move out. So here we go. Now we're just going to tighten this by hand, and you're going to do like a cross hatch here where you're going to go back and forth, start evenly spreading out the pressure. And this is just by feel. You just want to not do it too tight. You just want to get them snug. Like I said, just keep moving back and forth until you have them all. And then you can go back with your torque wrench and do your final pass. So here's torque wrench. Click, and then move along. I'm probably going to follow up with a video next. I have to, I have 170,000 miles, so I'm going to replace the water pump and all the coolant stuff. The engine's in really good condition. I mean, everything runs good. I haven't had any issues. And, obviously to have 170,000 miles in this car, I drive it a lot, so it doesn't sit very often. So a lot of the fluids last longer when you constantly drive the car. It's preventive maintenance. This isn't just like fixes. This is to prevent problems. Remember, you don't want to wait for problems to happen most of the time. Preventive maintenance will save you from having those headaches. Keeping a clean engine also helps, because when you have a clean engine, you can constantly see if anything changes, if leaks are starting. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start putting it back together. O2 sensor mounting bracket. So go ahead and slide that back on there. I almost put it on backwards. That's why it's good to have a video. I just put the rear PCV hose back on. And then, let's see, you just put the bracket back on it. Just hook the back harness back up onto the cover. Now we're going to reconnect the alternator. Like I said, just take your time. This job, if you haven't done something like this before, it will take you about 2 hours, 3 hours. Always disconnect your battery. That's the other thing I think I forgot to mention. Obviously, unhook the alternator and things like that. You do not want to leave the battery connected when you're messing around with that stuff. And it also gives you a chance to do some maintenance on your battery to make sure there's not anything built up on it. You can clean your posts and everything while you're at doing this. I mean, always a good time to do additional maintenance when you can. Okay, so I'm going to reconnect the other side of the PCV hose. Just a second. There we go. Slide that back on. And during this time also, you obviously are inspecting hoses. That hose could probably be replaced, but I'll do it the next time I do some work. Okay, now you're going to reconnect the coils on the top. Make sure that everything lined up on the spark plug holes, that your seals are lined up, because they'll kind of peel up a little bit, so you just got to make sure that they settled properly. Put the nuts back into the top. I keep saying nuts, but bolts back into the spark plugs, coils. It's very difficult to make these videos, especially because you can't work on the driver's side of the car when the camera's right there, and so that makes it a little bit more difficult. Trying to get enough light's also really hard, but I think I got enough light in here. And trying to keep your head out of the video too is kind of hard. So this is showing me reconnecting the back of the harness. I think I already did it, but I think I'm just double checking. I'm actually checking on the whole harness to make sure that nothing got left out. This is a good time. You're going to put the final cover on. This is just the beauty cover. That keeps dust from getting into the coils. All the coils looked in good condition. This is also a good time to inspect those. You'll see if things are melted or really discolored. A little bit of discoloration is not a big deal, but if they're, you can tell if something's wrong. Cracks in the boots or anything like that, and you'll have to replace. And that's the final piece right there. Put the cover on. I should have said it at the beginning. I hope people watch this video all the way through. No oil in the engine when you're doing this. Do something to remind yourself that you need to put oil into the car. And once you're done, put oil in after about 3 hours and you should be good to go. Thanks for watching.